You're in an office building. The carpet beneath your feet is stained industrial gray. The walls are a sickly yellow, covered in a grid pattern of aggressive fluorescent lights that hum without variation. There are no windows, no exits, no people. Just hallways that stretch infinitely in every direction. And the creeping realization that you didn't walk here. You no-clipped out of reality. And now, you're in the backrooms. This image, this sensation, this nightmare scenario, it began circulating on message boards around 2011, but it wasn't until May 2019 that a single post crystallized the concept. If you're not careful and you no-clip out of reality in the wrong areas, you'll end up in the backrooms. What started as internet folklore has evolved into a phenomenon that millions now recognize, fear, and collectively expand. A digital mythology so compelling it spawned creepypastas, games, and a major motion picture. That image, a photograph of a mundane office space with yellow walls and fluorescent lighting, had been circulating through message boards for nearly a decade before it found its perfect moment. On May 12, 2019, an anonymous user started a thread on /x/4chan's paranormal-themed board, asking users to post disquieting images that just feel off, and supplied the photograph. Another user replied with the first description of the backrooms. If you're not careful and you no-clip out of reality in the wrong areas, you'll end up in the backrooms, where it's nothing but the stink of old moist carpet, the madness of mono yellow, the endless background noise of fluorescent lights at maximum hum buzz, and approximately 600 million square miles of randomly segmented empty rooms to be trapped in. The genius wasn't in the image itself. It was in how that anonymous response transformed a simple renovation photograph into something psychologically disturbing. The photograph came from a former furniture store renovation in Wisconsin, a mundane commercial space that became, through the alchemy of internet storytelling, a portal to existential dread. The concept tapped into something primal, the fear of liminal spaces, those transitional environments that feel simultaneously familiar and wrong. The anonymous writer had weaponized a specific kind of architectural uncanniness, turning fluorescent-lit office spaces into symbols of infinite entrapment. The concept was strikingly simple. An empty, office-like space with yellow walls, fluorescent lighting, and worn carpet, described with a short paragraph explaining that one enters the backrooms by no-clipping out of reality, a reference to a video game glitch where a player phases through a solid boundary. This particular horror resonated because it combined the mundane with the impossible, a space that could exist anywhere, that felt almost familiar, yet promised only endless, inescapable emptiness. Within days, the internet had found its new obsession, but this was only the beginning of how a single image would spawn an entire mythology. Within months of that initial post, the backrooms exploded beyond its simple origin into a vast, collaborative mythology. Entities, supernatural creatures inhabiting the backrooms, were classified with obsessive precision. Their number, name, and habitat documented as if by researchers studying a real phenomenon. Levels became diverse in shape, size, and form, with certain spaces outdoors while others remained indoors, each with its own rules, dangers, and escape routes. What began as a single yellow room had transformed into an entire universe of interconnected spaces. The community didn't just expand the concept, they systematized it with methodical detail. Contributors created elaborate taxonomies, entities numbered into the hundreds, levels classified by danger ratings, survival guides detailing which supplies to carry and which sounds meant imminent death. The original anonymous writer's 600 million square miles had become a multiverse of precisely catalogued horror. Organizations like MEG, the Major Explorer Group, were invented as if they actually documented these spaces from within. Survival manuals, entity encounter reports, and level exploration logs were written as if by people trapped in these spaces, creating a shared fictional archive that felt disturbingly credible. This wasn't random world building, it was methodical mythology construction. Thousands of contributors were building not just stories, but an entire shared reality with internal consistency. Each new level, each new entity, each new rule didn't just add content, it deepened the sense that this place could be real, that somewhere beyond the boundaries of normal space, these yellow hallways actually existed, populated by
things that had once been human, and things that had never been human at all. The psychological genius was in how the community transformed a simple fear into a complex ecosystem of dread. Based on the community's methodical creation of entities with numbered classifications and survival guides, do you think the Backrooms would feel more or less terrifying if it stayed as just that single yellow room? Comment your answer below. Now let's examine how this collaborative mythology moved from niche internet forums into mainstream culture. Then, in January 2022, a 16-year-old filmmaker named Kane Pixels transformed the Backrooms from internet mythology into visceral reality. On January 7, 2022, Kane uploaded The Backrooms, found footage, to YouTube, a 9-minute video shot from a first-person perspective, following a young filmmaker as he no-clips into another reality that appears to be endless yellow offices, halls, and rooms. Parsons used the software, Blender, and Adobe After Effects to create the environment of the Backrooms, and it took him a month to complete it. What made this video revolutionary wasn't just its technical execution. It was how Parsons weaponized photorealistic rendering to make the impossible feel tangible. The video was given a VHS filter to disguise the CGI nature of the project, and many viewers were impressed with the lifelike camera movements that made the video feel real. The genius lay in the details, the subtle camera shake of someone genuinely terrified, the authentic breathing patterns of panic, the way fluorescent lights flickered with the precise frequency of actual office buildings. Parsons hadn't just recreated the yellow rooms, he had made them feel like a place you could accidentally stumble into tomorrow. The video captured something that text descriptions never could: the claustrophobic weight of being trapped in a space that stretched infinitely in every direction. The video has over 77 million views as of May 2026. By the end of 2022, the video had amassed over 43.2 million views. The video went on to be listed at number 8 on YouTube's US Trending Videos list in 2022, amongst celebrity videos and huge content creators such as Mr. Beast. But the numbers only tell part of the story. What Parsons had achieved was something far more unsettling. He had given millions of people the shared experience of exploring a place that didn't exist, yet felt more real than most actual locations they'd visited. The psychological impact was immediate and lasting. Viewers reported feeling genuinely disoriented, as if they had briefly glimpsed through a portal into an alternate dimension that existed just beyond the edges of normal reality. What makes the Backrooms uniquely disturbing isn't just their viral spread or photorealistic execution. It's how they weaponize specific vulnerabilities in human psychology that traditional horror can't touch. These spaces unsettle us because they exploit our brain's sensitivity to processing ambiguity and transition. Liminal spaces, those in-between environments like empty hallways, abandoned malls, or transitional corridors trigger a particular kind of cognitive distress. Our brains are wired to extract meaning from context. We navigate by landmarks, by social cues, by the promise of arrival. The backrooms strip all of this away. When we move through space, our brain constantly scenario plans, predicting what lies ahead, charting the best path forward, comparing the current context with stored memory. But when a space is featureless, when all the walls are the same yellow, when every hallway looks identical, when there are no windows or exits or markers of time, there are few context cues to inform decision-making. It's like trying to navigate an underground parking garage where everything looks the same, or assembling a puzzle where all the pieces are identical. The backrooms are designed with no clear exit, no global landmarks, and no windows to orient yourself in the larger world or even determine what time of day it is. This architectural monotony triggers what researchers call canopsia, the eerie atmosphere of a place that should be full of people but is unnervingly empty and abandoned. The backrooms combine this with what feels almost like the uncanny valley applied to architecture. Spaces that appear familiar enough to recognize as human-made, yet subtly deviate from how real spaces function. There's no purpose to them, no destination, no logic to their layout. What emerges is a horror that operates on pure architectural dread. Its emotional effect comes not from monsters or immediate danger, but from ontological confusion. The terrifying possibility that reality itself might be nothing more than an endless, purposeless maze where escape is not just impossible, but conceptually meaningless. In May 2026, the Backrooms phenomenon reached mainstream cinema. A major motion picture directed by Kane Pixels, the creator who first crystallized the concept in 2019. The film's opening projection signals how internet-born folklore now commands studio resources and theatrical distribution. A complete inversion of how horror was traditionally gatekept by established media institutions. But the real significance lies deeper. The backrooms reflect something essential about digital era consciousness: the fear of infinite, purposeless spaces. In recent years, millions navigate digital environments that feel simultaneously boundless and claustrophobic. Endless social media feeds, video calls that stretch without resolution, work from home setups that blur the boundary between refuge and trap. The backrooms became a perfect metaphor for this condition because they literalize what many experience psychologically: being lost in spaces designed to feel navigable, but offering only repetition and emptiness. What makes this phenomenon culturally significant is how it demonstrates the blurring of reality and fiction online. The backrooms aren't presented as entertainment. They're documented as if real. Entities are cataloged with scientific precision. Levels are mapped. Survival strategies are debated. This systematic treatment of fictional horror as though it were genuine research reflects how digital communities now construct shared realities. The line between "this is a story" and "this could be real" has become genuinely permeable. The deeper implication, the most compelling modern myths, aren't authored by professionals. They emerge from collective anxiety, refined through thousands of anonymous contributions, each post adding texture to a shared nightmare. The backrooms prove that horror doesn't need a single author. It needs a community willing to believe together. The backrooms have now reached mainstream theatrical release, with Kane Pixels' film adaptation and his YouTube series accumulating massive viewership, proving that internet-born horror can command distribution without traditional gatekeepers. What makes this cultural moment genuinely unsettling is how the backrooms have escaped their digital boundaries. The concept became so ubiquitous that any empty school hallway became backrooms, and recent isolation amplified the same psychological resonance. The fear had leaked into reality, transforming everyday spaces into potential portals to infinite emptiness. This phenomenon reveals something profound about how collective fear operates in the internet age. Unlike traditional folklore that emerged slowly through oral tradition, digital mythology spreads with viral velocity while maintaining the participatory nature of ancient storytelling. The Backrooms demonstrate how modern anxieties about isolation, about meaningless repetition, about being trapped in systems without purpose, crystallize into shared symbols that feel more real than reality itself. The Backrooms succeeded because they weaponized the architecture of modern life, turning the most mundane environments into symbols of existential dread. But their cultural significance extends beyond horror. They represent a new form of collective creativity, where anonymous contributors build entire universes through collaborative world building. This isn't just entertainment. It's a new way of processing shared psychological experiences through digital mythology. As we increasingly live in spaces that feel both infinite and confining, endless digital feeds, remote work environments, social media platforms designed to capture attention without offering resolution, the Backrooms function as a perfect metaphor for digital age consciousness. They externalize the internal experience of being lost in systems that promise navigation, but deliver only repetition. The most unsettling aspect isn't that millions of people can now look at a fluorescent lit corridor and recognize it as potentially dangerous. It's that this recognition feels completely rational. In an era where reality and fiction blur through screens, where communities form around shared experiences of imaginary places, where viral content shapes perception faster than traditional institutions can respond, the Backrooms represent something new, horror that emerges from collective psychological truth rather than individual imagination. This is the true legacy of the Backrooms phenomenon. They prove that the most compelling modern nightmares aren't crafted by professionals, but emerge organically from shared digital anxiety, refined through thousands of contributions until fiction and reality become genuinely indistinguishable. In doing
So, they reveal how internet culture has fundamentally changed not just how we consume stories, but how we collectively create meaning from our deepest fears. Subscribe for more deep dives into internet mysteries that blur the line between fiction and reality.